My husband looked at my sonogram and said, "That baby is not mine." I was 7 months pregnant. That same night, he locked me out of our house while his mother stood behind him, silent and calm, like she already knew I would end up on that porch. I slept in my car with one hand on my stomach and $23 in my purse. But the next morning, a lawyer called me about my late first husband, a man I had buried years before. The lawyer said he had left me something valuable, something my husband had already found out about. But there was one condition. And when I learned what that condition was, I finally understood why Grant had thrown me out before our baby was born. He was not trying to prove I had betrayed him. He was trying to make sure I lost everything before I knew it belonged to me. I had come home from a doctor's appointment that afternoon. The baby had moved during the scan. The nurse smiled and said, "She is already stubborn." I remember laughing because I needed that laugh. For weeks, my house had felt cold. Grant barely touched me anymore. He answered phone calls in the garage. His mother, Marlene, came over more than usual and looked at me like I was a guest who had stayed too long. But that day, I wanted to believe things could still be fixed. I carried the sonogram inside like a peace offering. Grant was standing in the living room. Marlene sat on the edge of the sofa, with her purse still on her lap. That should have told me something. She never kept her purse on her lap unless she was ready to leave, or ready to watch someone else leave. I held the picture out to Grant. "She moved today," I said. "The nurse said she is healthy." Grant did not take it. He looked at the sonogram like it was a bill he did not want to pay. Then he said the words that cut through my whole body. "That baby is not mine." For a moment, I could not even breathe. I looked at Marlene, waiting for her to act shocked. Waiting for her to say, "Grant, stop." But she only lowered her eyes and said, "A decent woman does not bring another man's child into her husband's house." That was when I saw the suitcase. My brown suitcase. It was already beside the front door. Packed. Not thrown together in anger. Packed with time. Packed with thought. Packed like someone had planned where I would stand and how badly it would hurt. I told Grant he knew the truth. I reminded him he was there when we heard the heartbeat. I reminded him he cried in the parking lot that day and said, "That is our little girl." His face did not move. He picked up the suitcase handle and rolled it onto the porch. I asked him where I was supposed to go. He said, "Go ask the man who gave you that baby." My daughter moved inside me then. Just once. Small and quick. I put my hand over my stomach like I could cover her ears from what her father had just said. Grant stepped back inside. Then I heard the keypad. Beep, beep, beep. He changed the lock code while I was still standing outside. Then the deadbolt clicked. I will never forget that sound. A person can take back a cruel sentence. A locked door tells you what they truly meant. That night, I sat in my car outside a closed pharmacy. My phone was almost dead. My feet were swollen. I kept checking the rearview mirror because every passing headlight made me nervous. I was not just heartbroken. I was scared. And the worst part was that I felt ashamed, even though I had done nothing wrong. Around sunrise, I opened the suitcase to find my charger. That was when I noticed the first thing that did not make sense. There were clothes inside. A sweater. Old jeans. A pair of shoes. But my medical folder was missing. My marriage papers were missing. My bank statements were missing. And the small blue file I kept from Julian was gone. Julian Hart was my first husband. He died years before I married Grant. I had packed that file away because I thought that part of my life was finished. But somehow Grant had taken it. I sat there staring into that suitcase, and for the first time since he locked me out, I stopped asking why he hated me. I started asking what he was hiding. Then my phone rang. The number was unknown. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. A man asked if he was speaking to Elena Brooks, formerly Elena Hart. My hand went cold around the phone. He said he was an estate attorney. He said there had been a final review connected to Julian's family trust. Then he said Julian had left something behind for me. Something I had never claimed because I never knew it existed. I looked at my suitcase. I looked at the missing blue file. And then the attorney said, "Mrs. Brooks, there is one condition." I did not understand it, yet. I did not know Grant had already called that office. I did not know Marlene had gone through my old papers. I did not know the lie about my baby had been planned before I ever walked through that door with the sonogram. But I know it now. Grant did not throw me away because I had no value. He threw me away because he was afraid I was about to learn how much power I really had. My name is Elena Brooks. Before Grant locked me out, people thought I had a good life. That was the dangerous part. From the outside, my marriage looked safe. We lived in a quiet suburb outside Charlotte, in a small 2-story house with white shutters and a front porch Grant liked to repaint every spring. I worked as a bookkeeper for a medical office. Grant worked in commercial lending. He wore pressed shirts, shook hands firmly, and remembered everyone's name at church. People trusted him because he looked like the kind of man who kept his promises. Marlene, his mother, was the same way. She always brought food when someone was sick. She sent birthday cards to neighbors. She smiled at baby showers and said the right things in the right voice. On paper, the Brooks family looked kind. But paper lies when people know how to hide behind it. People think betrayal starts with a scream. Mine started with silence. A phone turned face down. A husband coming to bed after I was already asleep. A mother-in-law asking questions that sounded sweet until I looked back and heard the blade inside them. For a while, I explained it all away. That is what love does when it is afraid. It makes excuses before it makes plans. Grant was tired. Grant was stressed. Grant had work problems. Marlene was just protective. I told myself those things because I wanted my daughter to be born into a home, not a war. Before I tell you the first sign I should have noticed, if stories about betrayal, hidden truth, and karma pull you in, subscribe and stay with me. Like this story, if you believe the truth, always finds its way out. And tell me where you are listening from tonight, or what time it is where you are. I read those comments because stories like this never belong to one place. Somewhere, someone else has sat in a quiet house and wondered why love suddenly felt cold. I was married to Grant for almost 4 years before that night. When we first met, he seemed steady. That was what pulled me toward him. I had already known loss. My first husband, Julian Hart, died years before I met Grant. Julian was gentle, quiet, the kind of man who noticed if I changed my coffee order or forgot my sweater at work. He got sick fast. Too fast. One year we were talking about planting a small garden. The next year, I was standing at his funeral, trying to remember how to breathe. After Julian died, I packed away the life we had shared. A few letters, old forms, some papers from his family I never fully understood. I kept them in a small blue file and put that file in a storage box. To me, Julian was not a secret. He was grief. And grief is not the same thing as betrayal. But Marlene never saw it that way. From the beginning, she treated my past like a stain on Grant's name. She never said it loudly. That was not her style. At Sunday dinners, she would smile while filling my plate and say things like, "Grant has always been generous. Sometimes too generous." Or, "A second marriage takes a special kind of trust." I would look at Grant, hoping he would defend me. Most times, he only changed the subject. When I became pregnant, I thought everything would soften. For a few weeks, it did. Grant came to the first ultrasound. He held my hand when we heard the heartbeat. His eyes filled with tears, and in the parking lot, he kissed my forehead and said, "That is our little girl." I believed him. I wanted that memory to be stronger than all the silence that came after it. So when he started taking calls in the garage, I told myself it was work. When he changed the password on our shared account, I told myself he was being careful. When Marlene began asking about old boxes in the closet, I told myself she was just nosy. Then one evening, 3 weeks before he locked me out, I woke up thirsty and went downstairs for water. The kitchen was dark. The garage light was on. I heard Grant's voice through the door. Low. Tight. Angry. He said, "No, she does not know about Julian's trust." I stood still with my hand on the glass. Julian's trust. I had not heard those words in years. Then Grant said something that made the cold move through my whole body. "My mother thinks we still have time." I stepped back before he opened the door. When he came inside, he saw me standing there. For 1 second, his face changed. Not guilt. Fear. Then he smiled like nothing had happened and said, "Could not sleep." I asked him why he was talking about Julian. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "You are pregnant. You hear things wrong when you are tired." And I wanted so badly to believe him that I let the lie sit between us. But now I know that was the first real crack. Not the night he threw me out. Not the suitcase. Not the lock. It started in that garage with my dead husband's name in Grant's mouth and his mother already standing somewhere behind the plan. After that night in the hallway, I started watching Grant more closely. Not like a detective. Like a wife who had heard something she was not supposed to hear. The next morning, I asked him again, "What trust were you talking about?" Grant was pouring coffee. His hand stopped for half a second. Then he laughed. "Elena, I work in lending. People talk about trusts all the time. But you said Julian." His face tightened. Then he turned to the sink and rinsed a spoon that was already clean. "I said junior trust, he told me. It was work. I knew what I heard. But Grant had a way of lying softly enough to make me feel foolish for believing my own ears. 2 days later, Marlene came over with baby blankets. She said she found them on sale. She smiled when she handed them to me, then stood in the nursery doorway and looked at the half-painted wall. "Children change everything," she said. I nodded and kept folding tiny socks. Then she asked, "Did Julian's family ever stay close after he passed?" My hand stopped. "Not really," I said. "A card sometimes. Nothing much." "And they never helped you financially?" I looked at her. "Why would you ask that?" She smiled again. "Oh, honey, do not be so sensitive. I just think a widow learns a lot about people after the funeral." Widow. She said the word like it made me less of a wife. That night, I checked the storage closet. The box with my old papers had been moved. Not far. Just from the bottom shelf to the top. But I knew I had not moved it. I pulled it down and opened it. The blue file was still there. Letters from Julian. Old forms. Documents I never really understood. I touched the folder and felt guilty for even looking at it, as if remembering my dead husband meant I was betraying my living one. A week later, my card declined at the grocery store. I was buying milk, bread, and prenatal vitamins. The cashier looked away kindly. The woman behind me sighed. My face burned. I called Grant from the parking lot. "Why is the card not working?" He answered like I was bothering him. I moved some things around. "Fraud protection." "You did not tell me." "You are pregnant, Elena. You do not need to stress over every little account change." Every little account change. That was how he described the money I used to buy food and vitamins for our child. When he came home, I asked for the new password. He kissed my forehead and said, "I will handle the finances for now. You focus on the baby." It sounded loving, but it felt like a lock. Then came the question that changed everything. We were sitting at the kitchen table 3 nights later. Marlene had just left. Grant had barely spoken all evening. Then he asked, "If Julian had left you money, would you consider it ours?" I looked up from my tea. "What?" "I am asking as your husband." I tried to stay calm. Julian did not leave me money. But if he had... The way he said it made my stomach tighten. I thought about the changed password. I thought about Marlene asking if Julian's family helped me. I thought about the storage box that had been moved. Then I said the only honest thing I could say. If Julian left anything, I would want it protected for the baby. Grant stared at me. Not angry at first. Just still. Like I had answered a question he had already built a plan around. Then he pushed his chair back. "So you do not trust me?" "That is not what I said." "That is exactly what you said." He left the kitchen before I could explain. That night, he slept in the guest room. The next morning, Marlene called. She did not say hello. She said, "Marriage does not survive when a woman keeps one foot in another man's grave." I sat on the edge of the bed, with one hand on my stomach. "Julian is dead, Marlene." Her voice stayed soft. Then why is he still costing my son peace? That was when I understood she was not only jealous of my past. She was afraid of it. After that, Grant changed completely. More garage calls. More deleted text previews. More questions about where I kept old legal things. Marlene offered to help with the nursery, but I found her in the hallway near the storage closet instead. When she saw me, she smiled and held up a roll of painter's tape. Just looking for supplies. But the tape was already in the nursery. By then, I knew something was wrong. I just did not know what shape it had. I thought Grant was jealous. I thought Marlene wanted me to erase Julian, so the Brooks family could feel first. I was still thinking like a wife. I did not know I should have been looking at papers. I did not know my answer at the kitchen table had changed the way Grant saw me. When I said I would protect anything from Julian for the baby, Grant heard only one thing. I would not hand it over. And from that night on, my husband stopped treating me like a woman he was losing. He started treating me like an obstacle. 3 days after that kitchen table conversation, Grant became strangely kind. Not loving. Kind. There is a difference. Love reaches for you. Kindness can be performed. He asked if I needed anything from the store. He told me to rest. He even touched my shoulder one morning and said, "You have been tired lately." For a moment, I wanted to believe the worst had passed. I wanted to believe we had both been scared, both been quiet, both been unfair. That is how badly I wanted my daughter to have a peaceful home. That afternoon, I had a doctor's appointment. Grant said he could not come because of work. He did not sound sorry. He just said, "Text me after." The appointment went well. The baby was healthy. She moved during the scan, turning her little face away like she was already stubborn. The nurse printed the sonogram and handed it to me. I remember holding it in the parking lot and smiling. I thought, maybe this will soften him. Maybe when he sees her again, he will remember. I drove home with the picture on the passenger seat. I did not know Grant and Marlene were already waiting. When I opened the front door, the house felt too quiet. No television. No kitchen sounds. No footsteps upstairs. Grant stood in the living room in his work shirt, sleeves rolled up. Marlene sat on the sofa, with her purse on her lap. Her coat was still buttoned. That was the first sign. She was not there to visit. She was there to witness. I looked from her to Grant. "What is going on?" Grant did not answer at first. He picked up a folded paper from the coffee table and held it between two fingers. It was a printed screenshot. An old message from Julian's sister. A message from months earlier, asking if I still had any papers from Julian's family. I had answered politely and forgotten about it. Grant held it up like it was proof of a crime. "How long have you been hiding this?" "Hiding what?" "Julian's family. Their money. Whatever you are planning." I looked at Marlene. She lowered her eyes, but I could see the corner of her mouth tighten. I said, "That was just a message. I told you I had old papers." "No," Grant said. "You told me Julian was your past." "He is." "Then why does his family still contact you?" The room felt smaller. I was tired. My back hurt. I still had the sonogram in my hand. I lifted it toward him. Grant, please. Can we not do this right now? The baby is healthy. Look. He did not take the picture. He looked at it once. Only once. Then his face went cold in a way I had never seen before. That baby is not mine. The words did not feel real. They felt like someone had opened the floor under me. I blinked. What did you say? He spoke slower, like he wanted every word to land. That baby is not mine. My hand went to my stomach. Marlene stood then. Slowly, like she had been waiting for her line. Elena, she said softly. A decent woman does not bring another man's child into her husband's house. I stared at her. I think part of me still expected someone to stop it. For Grant to say he was angry. For Marlene to say she had gone too far. For the walls to remember all the normal mornings we had lived inside them. But nobody stopped. Grant walked toward the hall closet. That was when I saw it. My brown suitcase beside the front door. Already packed. My breath caught. You packed my bag. Grant did not look ashamed. You need to leave. Grant, I am 7 months pregnant. You should have thought about that. His voice was flat. Flat is worse than yelling sometimes. Yelling still sounds human. Flat means the decision was made before you entered the room. I tried to explain. I reminded him he was at the first ultrasound. I reminded him he heard the heartbeat. I reminded him he cried in the car and said, "That is our little girl." He looked past me. Not at me. Past me. As if I had already become someone he had removed from his life. Marlene stepped closer and said, "Do not make this uglier than it has to be." I turned to her. You know, this is his child. Her eyes finally met mine. For 1 second, the softness disappeared. Then she said, "I know my son deserves peace." Peace. That was what she called it. Throwing out a pregnant woman. Calling an unborn baby a lie. Taking a marriage and turning it into a courtroom before any judge had seen it. Grant grabbed the suitcase handle and rolled it onto the porch. The wheels hit the threshold with a hard little bump. That sound made everything real. I followed him to the door. Where am I supposed to go? He opened the door wider. Go ask the man who gave you that baby. My daughter moved then. Small and quick. I put my hand over my stomach, like I could cover her ears from her own father. I said his name one more time. Grant. It came out broken. He did not answer. He stepped back inside. Marlene stood behind him, calm again. Not crying. Not shocked. Just calm. Then Grant shut the door. A few seconds later, I heard the keypad. Beep, beep, beep. Then the deadbolt clicked. I stood on the porch with the sonogram in one hand and my suitcase beside my feet. The neighbors' curtains moved across the street. I knew they were watching. And that was another kind of pain. Because when you are humiliated in public, even silence feels like applause for the person who hurt you. I knocked once. Then again. No answer. I called Grant's phone. It rang inside the house. He let it ring. Then my phone buzzed with one text from him. Do not come back until you are ready to tell the truth. I looked down at the sonogram. At my daughter's small shape. At the proof of the life inside me. And for one terrible moment, I understood what Grant and Marlene had done. They had not only locked me out of my house. They had locked me outside my own story. They were already inside, deciding who I was. And I was on the porch, holding the truth in my hand, with no one willing to open the door. I stood on that porch until my legs started to shake. Not because it was cold. Because my body finally understood what my heart kept refusing to accept. Grant was not coming back to the door. The man who had once carried me over that threshold after our wedding had just changed the code, so I could not cross it again. I picked up the suitcase with one hand and held the sonogram with the other. For a moment, I thought about knocking on a neighbor's door. But then I saw the curtain move across the street. Someone was watching. Maybe more than one person. And shame did what shame always does. It made me silent. I walked to my car slowly because my back hurt and my feet were swollen. Every step felt heavier than the suitcase. I put the sonogram on the passenger seat, like my daughter needed a safe place too. Then I sat behind the wheel and called Grant again. No answer. I called once more. No answer. Then a text came from Marlene. Elena, please do not make this harder on Grant. He is devastated. Devastated. I stared at that word until my eyes burned. Grant was inside the house. Grant had the bed. Grant had the lights on. Grant had his mother beside him. And somehow, in Marlene's version, he was the wounded one. Then the messages started. One from Grant's sister. I always knew something was off with you. One from his cousin. Marlene told us enough. Leave him alone. One from a woman at church. I am praying for everyone hurt by your choices. My choices. That was when I realized Marlene had not waited until morning. She had already told the story. She had already put me inside a lie and closed the door from the outside. I wanted to scream. I wanted to send every one of them the sonogram. I wanted to write, he was there, when we heard the heartbeat. But my hands were shaking too badly to type. So I drove. Not far. Just to a pharmacy parking lot with bright lights and cameras near the entrance. It was closed by then. But it felt safer than sitting outside my own house where people could watch me fall apart. I reclined the seat as much as I could. It was not enough. My stomach pressed against the seatbelt. My feet throbbed. My phone battery dropped to 12%. I had $23 in my purse and no idea where I was supposed to sleep the next night. That is a strange kind of fear. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind where you look at your own hands and realize no one is coming unless you call them. But I did not call anyone yet. Because a part of me was still embarrassed. That is what betrayal does when it is mixed with lies. It makes the innocent person feel dirty. I put one hand on my stomach and whispered, I am sorry. My daughter moved under my palm. Small. soft, alive. And that made me cry harder. Because she was real. She was real even if Grant denied her. She was real even if Marlene called her shame. She was real even if the whole Brooks family decided I was easier to blame than believe. I do not know how long I sat there. At some point, I reached for my charger. That was when I opened the suitcase. At first, I did not understand what I was seeing. There were clothes, a sweater, 2 pairs of jeans, old flats I could barely wear because my feet were swollen, a hairbrush, a few underthings. Everything looked normal if you did not know what should have been there. But I knew. My medical folder was gone. The folder with my appointment records. My insurance card copy. The papers for the hospital. My marriage certificate was gone. My bank statements were gone. The little envelope where I kept emergency cash was gone. And then I saw the empty space where the blue file should have been. Julian's file. I kept it in the bottom drawer of my desk. Old letters. Forms from his family. Papers I never understood. Papers I had not touched in years. Grant had packed my clothes. But he had not packed my proof. That was the first time the fear changed shape. It was still fear. But now it had a question inside it. Why would a man throwing out his pregnant wife take her medical papers? Why would he keep her marriage certificate? Why would he remove bank records? And why, after all these years, would he take the one file with Julian's name on it? I sat there in the pharmacy parking lot with my suitcase open across the passenger seat. The sonogram was beside it. My baby on one side. My missing past on the other. And suddenly, the night did not feel like a broken marriage anymore. It felt like a plan. I picked up my phone before the battery died and opened a new note. My hand still shook, but this time I typed. Grant locked me out. Marlene was there. Suitcase was packed. Documents missing. Julian file missing. Then I saved every message. Every cruel text. Every word they sent while I sat alone in that car. Because for the first time that night, I understood something. If they were already building a lie about me, then I needed to start saving the truth. By the time the sun came up, I had not slept. I had only drifted in and out of fear. Every sound in the parking lot made me open my eyes. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected another message telling me I was the problem. But after I wrote that note, something in me changed. Not all at once. I was still shaking. I was still sitting in a car with swollen feet and nowhere to go. But the question in my mind was different. The night before, I kept asking, why does Grant hate me? By morning, I was asking, what is Grant hiding? That question saved me. Because heartbreak will make you chase an answer from the person who hurt you. But suspicion makes you look at what they touched. And Grant had touched everything that could prove who I was. My medical folder. My marriage certificate. My bank records. Julian's blue file. I opened the Notes app again and started writing down everything I remembered. Not feelings. Facts. Grant asking about Julian's trust. Marlene asking if Julian's family ever helped me. The moved storage box. the changed bank password, my card declining at the grocery store, Grant asking if Julian's money would be ours, my answer about protecting anything for the baby, his face after I said it, the guest room, Marlene's call, her words about keeping one foot in another man's grave. Then, the night before, the suitcase, the accusation, the lock code, the missing papers. When I saw it all in one place, I felt sick. Not because it was confusing, because it was not. For weeks, I had treated every moment like a separate hurt. But on that phone screen, they connected. One line after another. One question after another. And all of them pointed to Julian. That was the part one could not understand. Julian had been gone for years. I had not talked about him often. I had not asked his family for anything. I had not even opened that blue file in a long time. So why had Grant and Marlene suddenly cared so much? Why now? That question kept coming back. Why now, when the baby was close? Why now, after the garage call? Why now, after Grant asked about money? Why now, after Marlene started looking near the storage closet? If Grant really believed the baby was not his, why take my documents? If he thought I cheated, why keep my bank records? If he wanted me gone, why keep Julian's file? The answer was small at first. Just a feeling. But it was enough. Grant did not only want me out of the house. He wanted me away from proof. And Marlene did not only want me ashamed. She wanted me quiet. I looked at Grant's last text again. Do not come back until you are ready to tell the truth. For the first time, the words did not make me cry. They made me angry. Because I was holding the truth. He was holding the papers. There is a difference. I almost called him. My thumb hovered over his name. The old part of me wanted to beg. To say, please Grant, just tell me what I did wrong. But the new part of me stopped. Because if a man locks you out while pregnant, takes your documents, and lets his mother poison the family before sunrise, he is not waiting for a conversation. He is waiting for you to panic. And I had almost given him that. I took a breath. Then I called the one person who had never made me feel small. Tessa Monroe. Tessa and I had worked together years earlier, before I married Grant. She was the kind of friend who heard what you did not say. When she answered, I tried to sound normal. I said, I need help. That was all I got out before my voice broke. Tessa did not ask for the clean version. She did not ask what I had done. She only said, where are you? I told her, the pharmacy parking lot. There was silence for 1 second. Then she said, do not move. I am coming. Those 3 words almost broke me worse than the cruelty had. Because when everyone else was asking what I had done wrong, Tessa asked where I was. While I waited, I kept saving screenshots. Grant's text. Marlene's message. His sister's accusation. The churchwoman's prayer that felt more like a verdict. Then I wrote one more line in my notes. Do not sign anything. Do not meet Grant alone. Find out what Julian left. I did not know where that thought came from. Maybe fear. maybe instinct. Maybe my daughter moving under my ribs, reminding me I was not only protecting myself anymore. When Tessa's car pulled into the lot, I finally opened my door. My legs hurt when I stood. My back ached. My face was swollen from crying. But I was not the same woman who had sat there in the dark. Something had shifted. I was still broken. But I was no longer begging the lie to love me back. I was ready to find out why it had been built. Tessa did not ask me to explain everything in the parking lot. She got out of her car, looked at my face, then looked at my stomach. That was enough. She walked over and wrapped her arms around me carefully, like she was afraid I might break if she held too hard. For the first time since Grant locked the door, I let someone else hold part of the weight. I cried into her shoulder. Not pretty crying. Not quiet crying. The kind that comes out when your body has been trying to stay strong for too long. Tessa kept one hand on my back and said, "You are safe now." I wanted to believe her. But safe felt like a word from another life. She helped me move my suitcase into her car. Then she opened the passenger door and said, "Get in. We are not doing this in a parking lot." On the drive to her apartment, I tried to tell the story in order, but it came out in pieces. The sonogram, Grant's face, Marlene's voice, the suitcase, the lock, the texts, the missing papers, Julian's blue file, the lawyer call. Tessa did not interrupt. She only said, "Keep going." When I finished, she pulled into her apartment complex and parked. Then she turned toward me and said something I still remember. "Elena, listen to me. Do not chase a man who is building a case against you." I stared at her. "A case?" "Yes," she said. "Maybe not in court yet, but in people's minds. In his family. In messages. In whatever papers he took." That sentence made my stomach turn. Because it was exactly what I had felt but could not name. Grant and Marlene were not only hurting me, they were arranging me. Tessa brought me inside and made me sit on the sofa. She gave me water. Then she plugged in my phone and took out a notebook. "I am not a lawyer," she said, "but I worked for one long enough to know what not to do." She wrote down 3 things. Do not sign anything. Do not delete anything. Do not meet Grant alone. Then she looked at me. "Say it back." I almost laughed because she sounded so serious. But her eyes did not soften. So I said it. Do not sign anything. Do not delete anything. Do not meet Grant alone. "Good," she said. Again. I said it again. And somehow, those simple words felt like a wall being built around me. Not a wall to trap me. A wall to protect me. Then Tessa asked to see the messages. I handed her my phone. She read Grant's text first. "Do not come back until you are ready to tell the truth." Her jaw tightened. Then she read Marlene's message. "Please do not make this harder on Grant. He is devastated." Tessa looked up and said, "She is worse than he is." I did not answer. Part of me knew it. Part of me was still afraid to say it out loud. Tessa forwarded the screenshots to my email so they would not disappear if my phone broke or Grant tried to shut off the account. Then she helped me write a full timeline. Dates. Times. Who was there? What was said? What was missing? When we got to the part about the estate attorney, she stopped writing. What was the name? Mr. Alden, I said. I think his first name was Charles. And he said Julian left something? Yes. Something connected to a family trust. Tessa sat back. Elena, that is not a small thing. I do not even know what it means. It means, she said carefully, that Grant might know more about your past than you do. A cold feeling moved through me. Then Tessa stood up and went to her desk. She came back with a business card. Rebecca Hale. Family law and estate disputes. I used to help file paperwork for her office, Tessa said. She is careful. She is not flashy. And she does not scare easy. I cannot afford a lawyer right now. You cannot afford not to talk to one. That line stayed with me because it was true in a way I hated. I had $23 the night before. No bank password. No papers. No house key. And a husband telling everyone I was carrying another man's child. Tessa called Rebecca's office right there. She did not use dramatic words. She said, I have a pregnant friend who was locked out of her home. Her husband took her documents. There may be estate money involved. She needs advice today. The receptionist put us on hold. I sat there with my hands folded over my stomach, listening to soft office music, wondering how my life had become something a receptionist had to sort by urgency. 20 minutes later, Rebecca called back herself. Her voice was calm. Not sweet. Calm. There is a difference. Sweet tries to make pain smaller. Calm makes room for it. She asked me simple questions. Are you safe right now? Yes. You have the messages? Yes. Did he physically hurt you? No. Did he lock you out of a marital home? Yes. Did he keep your identification or medical papers? My medical papers. Marriage papers. Bank records. And a file from my late husband. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then she said, do not go back there alone. Tessa pointed to the notebook like she had already won that argument. Rebecca continued, do not sign anything from Grant, his mother, or any attorney connected to them until I review it. Do not discuss the estate matter with them by text. Save every message. And call Mr. Alden back. My throat tightened. What if Grant says I abandoned the house? He locked you out, Rebecca said. That matters. 3 words. That matters. I had spent all night feeling like I had been erased. But someone official, someone who understood what papers meant, was telling me the truth still had weight. Before we hung up, Rebecca said she could meet me that afternoon. Tessa wrote the time down. After the call ended, the apartment felt quiet. Not empty. Quiet. I looked at my phone. No message from Grant asking if I was safe. No apology. No concern for the baby. Only silence. But this time, the silence did not swallow me. Because now I had names. Tessa. Rebecca. Mr. Alden. And I had instructions. Do not sign. Do not delete. Do not go alone. Call the estate attorney. For the first time since Grant looked at my sonogram and called our daughter a lie, I felt one small piece of the floor come back under my feet. I was not safe yet. But I was no longer alone. And the next call I made was not to my husband. It was to the man who knew what Julian had left behind. I called Mr. Alden from Tessa's kitchen table. Rebecca stayed on speaker. Tessa sat beside me with a notebook open, ready to write down every word. My hands were still shaking, but not the way they had in the car. This was a different kind of shaking. Fear mixed with something sharper. A need to know. Mr. Alden answered on the second ring. His voice was older than I expected. Careful. Professional. Mrs. Brooks, he said. I am glad you called back. I looked at Rebecca. She nodded once. I said, You mentioned my late husband, Julian Hart. You said there was a trust. Yes, he said. Julian was named in a family trust created by his grandfather. There were legal delays after several deaths in the family. The final review is happening now. I did not understand all of it. So Rebecca stepped in. Mr. Alden, keep it simple for her. What does that mean? He paused. Then he said, It means Julian's share did not disappear when he died. Part of it passed through his estate. Elena is still listed in the file. Still listed. 2 small words. But they made the room feel different. I had spent years thinking Julian left me nothing but memories. Now a stranger was telling me my name had been sitting in a file I never knew existed. What kind of trust is this? Rebecca asked. Mr. Alden cleared his throat. It includes property shares, investment accounts, and proceeds from a land sale. Tessa's pen stopped moving. I looked at her. She looked back at me. I whispered, How much? Mr. Alden did not answer right away. That silence scared me. Then he said, The final number is still being reviewed. But it is significant. Significant. That was the kind of word lawyers used when they did not want to say too much too soon. Rebecca leaned closer to the phone. And the condition? My chest tightened. That word had followed me since the parking lot. Mr. Alden said, Before any funds or property rights are released, Elena must confirm she never signed away her beneficiary rights. She must also confirm that no current spouse or third party has legal authority to act for her in this matter. I stared at the phone. I do not understand. Rebecca turned to me and spoke gently. It means this money can only go to you if you have not signed papers giving someone else control. The room went silent. Then I understood why my suitcase had clothes but not documents. I understood why Grant changed the bank password. I understood why Marlene kept asking about Julian's family. They were not just curious. They were checking whether I could be pushed into signing something before I knew what it meant. Mr. Alden continued. There is another reason I called. Someone contacted our office last week asking whether a spouse could request copies of your file. My skin went cold. Rebecca's voice changed. Who contacted you? a man who identified himself as Grant Brooks. Tessa wrote the name down hard enough that I heard the pen scratch. I could not speak. Mr. Alden said. He said he was your husband and wanted to help gather documents for you. Rebecca asked, "Did you send him anything?" No. We could not release the file without Elena's written consent. But he was very interested in whether any waiver documents were missing. Waiver. I hated that word before I even understood it. What is a waiver? I asked. Rebecca answered before Mr. Alden could. It is a paper that can give up a right. Sometimes people sign one without understanding what they are losing. My stomach turned. I thought about Grant asking if Julian's money would be ours. I thought about Marlene saying marriage did not survive with one foot in another man's grave. I thought about my medical folder, my marriage papers, my bank records, and Julian's file disappearing from my suitcase. This was no longer jealousy. It was paperwork. It was timing. It was a trap with polite words. Mr. Alden said, "Mrs. Brooks, I also need to ask something carefully. Have you recently signed any agreement with your husband about marital property, estate rights, or outside inheritance?" "No," I said quickly. Then I stopped. Grant had mentioned papers once. 2 weeks earlier. He had said we should organize things before the baby comes. I thought he meant hospital forms. I thought he meant insurance. I said he wanted me to sign something soon. I never saw it. Rebecca looked at me. What kind of something? I do not know. He said it was just to make things easier before the baby. Rebecca's face hardened. Tessa stopped writing. Mr. Alden was quiet. Then he said, "Do not sign anything until your attorney reviews it." Rebecca said, "She will not." For the first time since the lockout, I felt someone answer for me in a way that protected me. Not controlled me. Protected me. Mr. Alden promised to send Rebecca a secure copy of the documents he could legally share. He also said he would note that Grant had tried to access the file. When the call ended, I sat there staring at the phone. Tessa whispered, "He knew." I nodded, but I could barely breathe. Grant knew before I did. Marlene knew before I did. They knew Julian had left something. They knew there was a condition. They knew a signature could matter. And suddenly, Grant's cruel sentence sounded different in my memory. That baby is not mine. It had not been the beginning of his anger. It had been the cover for his plan. Rebecca folded her hands on the table. "Elena," she said, "we need to see whatever papers Grant tries to send you next." Why? Because the wording will tell us what he is really after. I looked down at my stomach. My daughter moved softly, almost like she was answering. The night before, I had thought Grant was trying to throw away his family. Now I understood something colder. He was trying to make me sign away my future before I knew I had one. And whatever paper came next, I knew it would not be an apology. It would be the trap. Rebecca did not explain everything right away. She let me breathe first. That was one thing I learned about good lawyers. They do not only listen to facts. They listen for the moment your body is ready to hear them. I sat at Tessa's kitchen table with my hands around a glass of water. The water had gone warm. I had not taken one sip. Rebecca spread the notes in front of us. Grant's text. Marlene's message. The missing documents list. The garage call. The changed bank password. Mr. Alden's confirmation that Grant had contacted the estate office. It looked like pieces of a broken mirror. But Rebecca saw the shape before I did. She tapped the page where I had written Grant's question. If Julian had left you money, would you consider it ours? This is the center, she said. I looked at the sentence. It still felt small to me. A strange question from a jealous husband. Rebecca shook her head. No. This was not jealousy. This was a test. A test for what? For control. Tessa leaned forward. Rebecca spoke slowly, like she wanted each word to land without crushing me. If Julian's trust passes directly to you, and you keep it separate, Grant may not be able to control it. But if he scares you, isolates you, and pushes papers in front of you while you are desperate, he may get you to sign away rights before you understand them. My stomach turned. So he would benefit more if I signed than if he stayed married to me? Rebecca nodded. Exactly. Staying married to you only helps him if he can control what you receive. But if that trust gives you independence, then, from his point of view, you become harder to control. Harder to control. Not loved. Not protected. Controlled. I looked down at my stomach. Grace moved softly, like she could feel the room change. I thought about what I had said at the kitchen table. If Julian left anything, I would want it protected for the baby. At the time, I thought I was saying something normal. Something any mother would say. But to Grant, it must have sounded like a locked gate. Rebecca continued. After you said that, what changed? I closed my eyes. He slept in the guest room. Marlene called the next morning. Then he started taking more calls. He asked where I kept old legal things. And then he accused me. Rebecca's face did not change, but her pen stopped moving. That is the pattern. Tessa said he needed her ashamed. Rebecca nodded. Shame makes people sign things. Fear makes people settle. Isolation makes people believe they have no choice. I felt tears rise again, but they were different this time. Not only pain. Anger. Clean anger. The kind that tells you your body has finally understood it was not your fault. Rebecca asked if Grant had money problems. I almost said no. That was how good the Brooks family was at looking stable. Grant wore nice shirts. Marlene hosted dinners. Their house always smelled like coffee and lemon polish. They talked about investments and property and smart decisions. But then I remembered things. Grant getting angry over small bills. A credit card statement he folded too quickly. A call from someone named Victor that made him leave the room. Marlene telling Grant, appearances matter right now. I told Rebecca all of it. She wrote it down. Tessa looked at me and said, Elena, did Grant ever say his business was struggling? He said lending was slow. He said some clients backed out. but he made it sound normal. Rebecca said, "Financial pressure would explain urgency. It would not excuse him. But it would explain why your trust scared them." The room went quiet. And in that quiet, the whole marriage began to look different. Grant had not become cruel because I did something wrong. He had become cruel because I had answered wrong. I had not promised to share. I had not promised to obey. I had said I would protect anything Julian left for the baby. That was when I stopped being useful to him. Marlene must have understood it faster than he did. Marlene did not think like a hurt mother. She thought like someone guarding a family name. If the Brooks family needed money, Elena with a hidden inheritance was useful. But Elena with protected money was dangerous. Because protected money meant choices. A lawyer. A safe apartment. A future for my daughter. A way to leave without begging. And that was what they were afraid of. Not Julian. Not even the baby. They were afraid of a version of me they could not corner. Marlene's text sat on my screen like a hand on my throat. "Elena, we need to speak privately. For the child's sake. For the child's sake." That was how she dressed up control. Not for Grant. Not for the family name. Not for the money. For the child. As if my daughter needed silence more than truth. Tessa read the message again and said, "Absolutely not." Rebecca's answer was calmer. "She can speak to you," she said, "but not privately. If you answer, keep it short. No emotion. No promises. No meeting alone." I nodded, but my stomach still turned. Marlene had a way of making you feel rude for protecting yourself. That was her gift. She could hand you a knife and make you apologize for bleeding on it. Rebecca helped me write back. "You may speak with me through my attorney." I sent it. 3 minutes later, Marlene called. I did not answer. Then she called again. Then she texted. "That is not necessary. I am trying to help you." Tessa looked at the phone and whispered, "Help you disappear. Maybe." I wanted to ignore it. But a part of me still wanted to hear what Marlene would say when she knew I was not alone anymore. So Rebecca gave me rules. Speak her on. No private promises. No arguing. No defending the baby. No discussing Julian's estate. If Marlene said something important, let her say it. Then hang up. I answered the next call with Rebecca and Tessa sitting beside me. "Marlene," I said. Her voice came through soft and wounded. "Elena, I am disappointed it has come to this. Not worried. Not sorry. Disappointed. I only want to keep this from becoming uglier," she said. I looked at Rebecca. Rebecca wrote on the notebook. "Let her talk. Melina sight. Grant is destroyed." I said nothing. He has not slept. I still said nothing. And despite everything, he is willing to be reasonable. Reasonable. That word almost made me laugh. Reasonable was locking a pregnant woman outside. Reasonable was calling a baby a lie. Reasonable was spreading shame before sunrise. Marlene continued. You are young. You are emotional. You have been through loss before. I understand that. Losing Julian must have confused many things for you. There it was. Julian. She could not stay away from his name. I kept my voice steady. My past is not the issue. Oh, sweetheart, she said. Your past is always the issue when it keeps walking into my son's marriage. Tessa's eyes narrowed. Rebecca wrote, Do not answer that. Marlene's voice softened even more. I brought some baby things to the house. Blankets. A few little outfits. I wanted you to have them, but Grant is not ready to see you. My hand tightened around the phone. The house. She said it like I had left it. Like I had walked away instead of being locked out. Then she added, A good mother thinks ahead, Elena. A good mother avoids scandal before it follows her child. I closed my eyes. There it was. The hook under the kindness. She was not talking about peace. She was talking about shame. What do you want, Marlene? For the first time, she went quiet. Then she said, I want you to be practical. Rebecca underlined something on the notebook. Practical means money. Marlene continued. Grant may be willing to help with rent for a while. Medical bills too. He is not a cruel man. I stared at the phone. Not a cruel man. The bruise was not on my body, but I felt it anyway. He can make this easier for you, she said. But only if you stop turning this into a public fight. I did not make it public. Elena, she said, still soft. People are already asking questions. Because you answer them. That slipped out before I could stop it. Rebecca gave me a warning look, but Marlene only let out a sad little breath. I protected my son. And who protected me? Silence. For 1 second, there was no sweet voice. No wounded mother. No church smile. Just silence. Then Marlene said, You should be careful how you speak to the woman who is still willing to help you. The room changed. Even Tessa stopped moving. There she was. The real Marlene. Only for a second. Then the softness came back. I am sorry, she said. This is emotional for all of us. No, I thought. It is strategic for you. Marlene went on. There will be papers. Nothing frightening. Just something to keep everyone safe until we know what is true. Rebecca's pen stopped. Tessa looked at me. I felt my daughter move under my palm. What papers? I asked. Just a private agreement. Temporary support. A promise not to discuss family matters. A way to avoid court. A way to protect the child from gossip. Rebecca wrote in large letters. NDA. Paternity. Estate. Marlene said, If you sign quickly, Grant may still choose kindness. I heard it then. The real offer. Not love. Not apology. Kindness in exchange for silence. Money in exchange for my name. Support in exchange for my future. I said, "Send everything to Rebecca." Marlene's voice cooled. "So, this is who you are now?" I looked down at my stomach. For weeks, that kind of question would have made me explain myself. Now it only made me tired. "No," I said. "This is who I should have been sooner." Tessa's eyes filled with tears. Marlene did not answer right away. Then she said, "You are making a mistake." "No," I said softly. "I already made one. I trusted the wrong people with my fear." I hung up before she could answer. The apartment stayed silent for a long moment. Then Rebecca said, "That was the offer before the offer." "What does that mean?" "It means the real papers are coming." Tessa pushed the notebook toward me. On it were the words Rebecca had written. NDA. Paternity. Estate. 3 words. 3 doors they wanted to close. My silence. My daughter's truth. Julian's gift. And as I stared at them, I finally understood why Marlene had sounded so sweet. She was not trying to comfort me. She was trying to make the cage feel warm before she locked it. The papers arrived the next morning. Not from Grant. From a lawyer I had never heard of. His name was Peter Langford, and the email subject line said, "Proposed temporary family agreement." Temporary. Family. Agreement. 3 soft words for something that felt hard before I even opened it. Rebecca was already on the call with me, and Tessa, when I clicked the file. The first page looked harmless. It said Grant wanted to avoid stress. It said he wanted to protect the child until truth and emotions could settle. It said he was willing to help with rent, medical bills, and basic needs for 30 days. For 1 week moment, I wanted to cry from relief. 30 days of rent. Medical bills. A place to sleep. When you are pregnant and scared, even a small offer can look like mercy. That is why traps do not always look like cages. Sometimes they look like help. I whispered, "Maybe I should just take it for now." Tessa turned toward me. Rebecca did not scold me. She only said, "Keep reading." So I did. The second page mentioned privacy. It said I agreed not to discuss family matters with friends, relatives, church members, employers, or online communities. "That means silence," Rebecca said. I kept reading. The third page said paternity was in dispute. My throat tightened. In dispute. Rebecca's voice stayed calm. "It means they want you to sign a paper that makes Grant's accusation look like a real legal question." But it is not. Then do not help them make it one. I looked back at the document. The words started to blur. The fourth page said I would accept temporary support without admission of responsibility from Grant. The fifth page said I would not enter the marital home without written permission. The sixth page said I would return any property belonging to the Brooks family. Then came page 7. Rebecca went silent before I understood why. The section title read, "Outside estate interests and beneficiary matters." I felt the air leave my chest. Tessa leaned closer. What does that mean? Rebecca said. This is the part. The clause said I agreed not to pursue, claim, transfer, hide, or dispute any outside estate interest without notifying Grant's counsel. It also said any unknown estate funds discovered during the marriage would be subject to later marital review. I stared at the words. They know, I whispered. Rebecca said. Yes. Grant's lawyer had wrapped Julian's trust inside a paper that pretended to be about peace. The same paper that called my daughter's father disputed also tried to put a hand on money from a dead man Grant claimed had nothing to do with our marriage. My stomach turned. Because now I saw the whole trap. If I signed, I would be quiet. If I signed, Grant's lie about the baby would become part of a legal file. If I signed, I might give him a path toward Julian's trust. If I signed, Marlene could tell everyone I had agreed because I knew I was wrong. I put my hand over my stomach. Grace moved once. Small and steady. I thought about the pharmacy parking lot. The $23. The dying phone. The suitcase without my papers. And I understood why they had waited until I was weak to send this. They did not send it because they wanted peace. They sent it because fear makes a signature easier. Rebecca said, Elena, listen carefully. This is not support. This is a cage. Tessa's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was firm. You are not signing that. I looked at the first page again. Rent. Medical bills. Basic needs. It hurt to look away from that. I hated that I even wanted it. But that was the cruelest part. Grant had created the emergency, then offered himself as the rescue. Marlene had spread the shame, then offered silence as protection. They burned the bridge and then sold me a rope. I said, What happens if I refuse? Rebecca answered honestly. They may threaten you. They may cut off money. They may try to make you look unstable. They may rush to court first. I closed my eyes. So refusing makes it worse. No, Rebecca said. Refusing keeps it true. That line settled over me. Refusing keeps it true. I had spent so many years trying to keep peace that I had forgotten peace was not the same as truth. Peace with a liar is just silence with better manners. I opened my eyes. Tell them no. Rebecca asked, Are you sure? My voice shook. But I meant it. Yes. Rebecca drafted the response while I watched. It was short. No emotion. No defense. No begging. My client declines the proposed agreement. All future communication must go through counsel. Please preserve all communications, drafts, financial records, and estate-related correspondence. Preserve. That word felt like a door opening. Because Rebecca was not only rejecting the trap. She was warning them that the papers could become evidence. When she sent it, my hands went cold. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then Grant texted me. You are making this uglier than it has to be. A minute later, Marlene texted. A good mother would think about the child before dragging everyone into court. I stared at both messages. Then I did something I had not done once since Grant locked me out. I did not answer. I screenshotted them, forwarded them to Rebecca, saved them in a folder named Truth. That evening, Rebecca called me back. "Grant's lawyer wants a meeting," she said. With Grant, his lawyer, Marlene, and us. My heart started pounding. Tessa reached for my hand. Rebecca continued, "You do not have to speak much. But I think it may help to see how they react when they realize we know about Julian's trust." I looked at the unsigned agreement on Tessa's table. The cage they had built. The paper they thought fear would make me sign. Then I looked down at my daughter moving beneath my hand. For the first time, I did not feel like I was only running from Grant. I felt like I was walking toward the truth. "Okay," I said. "I will meet them. But this time, I would not go alone. And this time, I would not walk in ashamed." The meeting was at Rebecca's office 2 days later. I almost did not go. That morning, I stood in Tessa's bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror. My face was still tired. My eyes still looked swollen. My body still felt heavy from the baby, from the fear, from sleeping in a place that was not mine. For a moment, I heard Grant's voice again. "That baby is not mine." Then I heard Marlene's. "A good mother avoids scandal." I put both hands on the sink and whispered, "No. A good mother tells the truth." That was the sentence I carried with me into the meeting. Tessa drove me. Rebecca met us in the lobby. She looked at me and said, "You do not have to prove your pain today. You only have to stay calm." I nodded. But my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Grant was already in the conference room when we walked in. He wore a dark blue shirt I had ironed for him 2 weeks earlier. That small detail hurt more than I wanted it to. Marlene sat beside him. Perfect hair. Pearl earrings. Hands folded on the table. She looked like a woman attending a church meeting, not a woman who had watched her pregnant daughter-in-law get locked out. Grant's lawyer, Peter Langford, sat across from Rebecca. He smiled like this was only business. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, "thank you for coming." I did not correct him. I was still Mrs. Brooks. That was part of what Grant wanted to forget. Rebecca sat beside me and placed a folder on the table. Tessa waited outside because Rebecca said fewer people in the room would keep things cleaner. But knowing she was nearby helped me breathe. Peter started first. "We are here to avoid unnecessary conflict." Rebecca said nothing. Peter continued. "Mr. Brooks is willing to provide temporary support while the parties sort through certain personal concerns." Personal concerns. That was what they called being thrown out while pregnant. Grant finally looked at me. For 1 second, I saw the man from our wedding photos. Then it was gone. "Elena," he said, "this has gotten out of hand." I almost laughed. Out of hand. As if the lie had walked away on its own. I looked at him and said, "You locked me out. His jaw tightened. You forced me into a position. Marlene touched his arm. A soft little warning. Rebecca opened the folder. We are not here to debate blame. We are here because your proposed agreement contains language about paternity, confidentiality, and outside estate interests. The room changed. Not loudly, but I felt it. Grant looked at Marlene. Only for a second. But I saw it. Rebecca saw it too. Marlene smiled. I am not sure why Julian's old matters keep being dragged into this. Old matters. She made my first husband sound like a box of dusty papers. Rebecca slid one page forward. This clause was drafted before Elena was locked out. Peter cleared his throat. It was a preliminary draft. Rebecca said, dated 3 days before Grant accused her. Grant's face lost color. I turned to him. 3 days. The paper had existed 3 days before he looked at my sonogram and denied our daughter. My voice came out quieter than I expected. You planned it before I came home. Grant looked at the table. Marlene answered for him. No one planned anything. Grant was trying to protect himself. I looked at her. From his pregnant wife. Her eyes sharpened. From a woman who was not honest about her past. There it was. Not fully exposed yet. But closer. Rebecca slid another page across the table. Mr. Alden's office confirmed Grant contacted them about Elena's beneficiary file before Elena knew the trust review was active. Peter shifted in his chair. That is not unusual for a spouse. Rebecca said. It becomes unusual when that spouse later locks her out, keeps her documents, and sends an agreement asking her to waive estate-related rights. The room went silent. Grant rubbed his forehead. Marlene leaned forward. Elena, this does not have to be ugly. I looked at her. It was ugly when you stood in my living room and let him call my baby another man's child. Marlene's mouth tightened. You keep saying that like we had no reason to question things. I felt my daughter move. Strong that time. I placed one hand on my stomach. Then I said the sentence I had waited 2 days to say. You did not question my baby because you doubted me. You questioned my baby because you needed everyone else to doubt me. Grant looked up. His eyes were angry now. Not hurt. Angry. You always make yourself the victim. I did not flinch. Because you made me one. Marlene's soft face cracked. Only a little. But enough. She turned to Rebecca and said, that trust should never have gone to her without review. Rebecca's pen stopped. Grant whispered, Mom. But it was too late. The room had heard it. That trust. Not if there is a trust. Not whatever she claims. That trust. Marlene knew. She had always known. I looked at her, and for the first time, I was not afraid of her. You knew before I did. Marlene sat back. Her face went smooth again, but the mask did not fit the same. I knew enough to know my son was being used. No, I said. You knew enough to know I might not need him. That was when she lost control. Just for a breath. Her voice turned cold. You walked into this family with a dead man's name still attached to you. You think his money should raise Grant's child while Grant gets nothing? Peter said, Mrs. Brooks. But Rebecca lifted one hand, stopping him. Marlene's words hung in the room. Grant's child. She had said it. Not another man's child. Grant's child. I turned slowly toward Grant. He was staring at his mother like he wanted to pull the words back into her mouth. But he could not. I whispered, You heard that? He said nothing. Rebecca closed the folder. I think we are done for today. Peter tried to speak, but Rebecca continued. We will be requesting all drafts, emails, call logs, financial records, and communications related to Elena Brooks, Julian Hart's trust, and the proposed agreement. Marlene stood. This is unnecessary. Rebecca looked at her. No. What happened to Elena was unnecessary. This is documentation. For the first time, Marlene had no soft answer ready. Grant pushed his chair back. Elena, he said, you are making a mistake. I looked at him. There was a time when that sentence would have sent me running back, begging him to tell me how to fix it. But that woman had slept in a car. That woman had opened a suitcase and found her proof missing. That woman had learned the difference between peace and silence. So I said, No, Grant. The mistake was thinking I would stay ashamed long enough for you to steal from me. He stared at me. I stood slowly. My legs shook, but my voice did not. Then Rebecca walked me out of the room. Tessa was waiting in the hallway. The second she saw my face, she stood. I did not cry until we reached the elevator. But this time, the tears were different. They were not the tears of a woman begging to be believed. They were the tears of a woman who had just watched the mask slip. And once a mask slips, even for a second, you know where to look for the truth. The truth did not arrive all at once. It arrived in pieces. A record here. A date there. A message someone forgot to delete. A call log that said more than any apology ever could. Rebecca told me that real proof rarely feels dramatic at first. It usually looks boring, she said. Until you put it in order. So we put it in order. First came the DNA test. Grant fought it at first. Not loudly. Not in a way that made him look guilty. He said he did not want to stress the baby. He said he did not want to rush a painful issue. He said he needed time to process. Rebecca only said, Then we will request it formally. After that, he agreed. The result came back 2 weeks later. I was sitting in Tessa's living room when Rebecca called. Her voice was calm, but I heard something underneath it. Elena, she said, Grant is confirmed as the father. I closed my eyes. I had known. Of course I had known. But knowing the truth inside your body is different from seeing it written on paper. For weeks, Grant had called my daughter a lie. Marlene had called her shame. His family had treated my pregnancy like proof of my sin. And now one page had answered them all. Grant was her father. Not maybe. Not likely. Confirmed. I put my hand over my stomach and whispered, "You were never the lie." Tessa sat beside me and cried without trying to hide it. Rebecca sent the result to Grant's lawyer. Grant did not text me. Marlene did not apologize. That silence told me something. They had not been waiting for truth. They had been hoping truth would stay buried. Then came the estate records. Mr. Alden sent Rebecca the documents he could release. Julian's name. My name. The trust review. The delayed transfer. The property shares. The investment accounts. The land sale proceeds. It was real. All of it. I stared at the pages until the words blurred. Julian had left me something I never knew existed. Not because he wanted me trapped in the past, but because even after death, some part of his life had reached forward and placed protection in my hands. Rebecca was careful with me. She did not let me think money fixed pain. It does not erase what Grant did, she said. But it gives you choices. Choices. That word felt almost too large to hold. A safe place. Medical care. A nursery Grant could not lock me out of. A lawyer I could pay. A future where Marlene's approval did not decide whether my daughter had peace. But the trust records were only the beginning. The real collapse started when Rebecca received the call logs. Grant had contacted Mr. Alden's office before I came home with the sonogram. Not once. 3 times. The first call was to ask if a spouse could request estate records. The second was to ask whether a beneficiary could sign a release. The third was the day before he locked me out. On that call, according to the office note, Grant asked whether a temporary family agreement could affect outside estate claims. Rebecca placed the note in front of me. I read it twice. Then a third time. The words looked clean. Professional. Almost harmless. But I knew what they meant. The trap had a date. And that date came before the accusation. Grant did not accuse me, then panic and look for legal help. He looked for legal help, then accused me. After that came the storage unit record. I had forgotten about the keypad log until Rebecca asked. Months earlier, Grant and I had rented a small storage unit for old furniture, Christmas boxes, and papers we did not use often. My blue file had been in a box from that unit before I moved it home. The facility had access records. Marlene's code had been used 6 days before the lockout. Not mine. Not Grant's. Marlene's. There was also security footage. Grainy. Silent. Not dramatic. But clear enough. Marlene walking down the row of units in her cream coat. Marlene opening our unit. Marlene leaving with a flat blue folder tucked under her arm. For a long time, I could not speak. I just watched the image freeze on the screen. That blue file had held my past. She carried it like it was hers to take. Tessa cursed under her breath. Rebecca only said, "That matters." Those words again. That matters. And this time, I believed them. Then came the emails. The emails were the thing Marlene could not smooth over. They were not soft. They were not polite. They were not church smiles and baby blankets. They were clear. One message from Marlene to Grant said, "If she learns the trust clears before she signs, we lose leverage." Another said, "The baby issue gives you room. Use it carefully." I read that line and felt something inside me go still. The baby issue. My daughter's life. My swollen feet. My doctor appointments. My fear in that parking lot. To Marlene, all of that was an issue. A tool. A way to give Grant room. Grant replied. She said she would protect anything for the baby. She will not share unless she has to. There it was. The kitchen table. My honest answer. The moment they decided I was not a wife to convince anymore. I was a problem to pressure. Grace was born on a rainy Tuesday morning. Not in the house Grant had locked me out of. Not with Marlene standing in the hallway, deciding what kind of mother I was allowed to be. Not with shame sitting beside the hospital bed. She was born in a quiet room with Tessa holding my hand and Rebecca waiting in the lobby with a folder full of papers that no longer scared me the way they once had. When the nurse placed Grace on my chest, she was warm and small and angry at the world. Her cry filled the room. For 1 second, I could not speak. I only looked at her. Her tiny fists. Her red face. Her dark hair pressed flat against her head. And I thought about every person who had tried to turn her into a question. Grant had called her a lie. Marlene had called her scandal. Their family had called her proof of something dirty. But there she was. Breathing. Crying. Real. The most honest thing in the room. I touched her cheek and whispered, "You were never the shame. You were the reason I survived it." Tessa cried harder than I did. The nurse smiled and said, "She has strong lungs." I laughed then. A real laugh. Small, tired, and broken around the edges. But real. Grant did not come to the hospital. Part of me expected that to hurt more. It did hurt. But not the way I thought it would. It did not feel like being abandoned. It felt like a door staying closed that no longer belonged to me. Marlene sent one message through her lawyer asking about appropriate grandparent access. Rebecca handled it. I did not answer. That was one of the first lessons of my new life. Not every message deserves your heartbeat. A few weeks later, I moved into a small rental house on the edge of town. It was not fancy. The kitchen floor creaked. One bedroom window stuck if it rained. The porch light flickered unless I tapped the switch twice. But every key on that ring belonged to me. No one could change the code while I stood outside. No one could decide I had to earn my way back in. No one could call my daughter a lie under my own roof. The first night there, Grace slept in a bassinet beside my bed. I sat on the floor, surrounded by half-open boxes. The blue file was on the table. Returned. Bent at one corner. But returned. I opened it slowly. Inside were Julian's letters. Old forms. Papers I had once ignored because grief made everything feel too heavy to understand. At the back was a note I had not seen in years. Julian had written it during one of his sickest weeks. It was only one line. If life ever gets hard again, I hope something I left behind helps you stand. I pressed the paper to my chest and cried. Not because I wanted Julian back instead of the life I had. Not because money could heal betrayal, but because love and control had finally become clear to me. Julian had left protection without demanding ownership. Grant had offered support only if I gave him silence. That was the difference. Real love does not need you weak before it helps you. Real love does not ask you to disappear so someone else can feel powerful. Real love does not turn your fear into a signature. The estate process took time. Court took time. Healing took longer than both. Some mornings, I still woke up angry. Some nights, I replayed the porch. The keypad. The suitcase. Grant's face when he said, "That baby is not mine." Healing did not erase those memories. It only taught me where to put them. Not in my daughter's crib. Not in my new home. Not in my name. They belonged to Grant and Marlene. So I gave them back. Grace grew. She learned to hold my finger. Then she learned to smile. And every time she looked at me, I remembered something Rebecca once said. Truth does not always arrive loud. Sometimes it arrives organized. That was how my life came back too. Not all at once. A document. A safe room. A returned file. A court order. A baby's cry. A key in my own hand. Piece by piece, I became someone I recognized again. Not the woman I had been before Grant. Someone stronger. Someone quieter. Someone who no longer confused peace with silence. People asked me later if I hated him. The honest answer is no. Hate still keeps your hand on the same locked door. I wanted my hand free. I wanted both arms for my daughter. Grant lost more than money. He lost the power to decide what my story meant. Marlene lost more than her reputation. She lost the room she used to control with one soft sentence. And I gained more than an inheritance. I gained the truth about myself. Grant did not throw me away because I was worthless. He threw me away because he found out I had a future he could not own. Marlene did not hate my past because it made me weak. She hated it because it had left me protection. And my daughter was never the reason I lost a home. She was the reason I found the strength to build one. So if you have stayed with me this far, stay for the stories that remind us what betrayal tries to hide. Subscribe if you believe the truth can still rise after the door closes. Like this story if you believe a woman should never be shamed for surviving what was done to her. And tell me where you are listening from tonight, because somewhere, someone else may need to hear this part most. A cruel lie can steal your peace for a while, but it cannot keep what was meant to find you. And sometimes the door they lock behind you is the same door that finally sets you free.